Hey everybody, welcome to another Terrainify tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to paint our deciduous trees. If you want some of these trees for your own gaming table, links are in the description, as well as the list of materials and colors. Okay, here we go. Step 0. I recommend using black filament. The reason for this is that there are some areas deep within the branches that can be difficult to reach. If you miss any spots when painting, black filament will help hide them a little better. So the first step is to paint the entire model in a medium to dark brown. We'll add some other colors later to differentiate the rocky part of the base from the tree, but for now we're going to base the entire model in the same color. Water down the paint a little bit so that it flows better and spreads easier. When you finish, set it aside to dry before going on to the next step. Once it's dry, we can also go back and do some touch-up if necessary. For the next step, we're going to dry brush a light brown onto the tree. Dry brush the entire model, focusing especially on the outer tips of the branches, because those are the parts that will tend to show through after we apply the foliage. And here's a pro tip. Make sure to use a dry brush when dry brushing. The next step is to apply Hob-E-Tac. Hob-E-Tac will either be amazing or the worst thing ever, depending on how well you follow the directions. First, give it a good shake. When you open it, you'll see that it comes with an applicator brush, but I'm going to use a different brush with a smaller tip because we're going to be applying it in some tight, difficult to reach areas. I recommend using a cheap craft brush for this step. Apply the Hob-E-Tac straight from the bottle to all of the surfaces of the branches where you want to apply foliage. So the majority of the branches, all the way out to the tips, while avoiding getting any on the trunk. Here's the most important thing to remember when using Hob-E-Tac. Hob-E-Tac looks similar to white PVA glue, but it's actually nothing like it. If you treat it like white glue and try to apply the flock while it's still wet, the flock won't stick and you'll end up with a mess. The key is to give it time to cure after you finish applying it, at least an hour. If you do, it'll remain sticky and adhesive and flock will stick right to it. There are many different options available for foliage. For this tutorial, I'm going to use clump foliage. Normally when applying foliage, I would work right from the bin that you can see here, but the bin is a little obstructive when filming, so I'm going to keep it off to the side and work over a paper towel instead. This way I can reclaim the excess that falls off. To apply the clump foliage, take a small amount and press it into place firmly onto the branches. You can also use the shape of the branches themselves to help hold the foliage by taking a clump and wedging it in between some branches. This will help hold the larger clumps of foliage in place and also give the tree more volume. And this is where you can see just how amazing Hob-E-Tac is. Once it cures, it remains permanently sticky. You can touch it and it won't stick to or leave a residue on your fingers, but it will do a really great job of holding the foliage. It's also shiny once it's cured, and this is helpful because you can see exactly where it is. This does also mean that you want to make sure you cover all of it with foliage, otherwise you'll have shiny spots on your tree. Once you're satisfied with how the clump foliage looks, it's time to seal it with some watered down white glue. This is pretty messy, so normally I would do this right over a trash can, but for this video I'm going to be a cretin and do it over the work surface instead, and just wipe it up afterwards. There are different ways you can apply the sealer, but I like to use these wash bottles. Hat tip to Uncle Adam for the recommendation. These bottles work really well. Use a generous amount and let it soak in. Make sure to come at it from the bottom too. This way you saturate all of the clump foliage. You might lose a few bits and pieces, but you want to make sure to really soak it. The tree should actually feel noticeably heavier because of the amount of liquid that's been added to it. While the sealer is still wet, I'm going to add some SuperLeaf to give it additional color and texture. Again, I normally do this right over the bin, but because it kind of gets in the way when recording, I'm going to do it directly over the work surface instead. Take a pinch of SuperLeaf and sprinkle it over the top of the tree. You can also rotate the tree and put a little bit on the sides, but don't put any on the bottom. You can use a fairly generous amount in order to add both texture and color. When you're finished, apply a little more sealer and set it aside to dry. At this point, the only thing left to do is the base. Use a small brush to apply white glue directly to the base. We're going to cover pretty much the entire base, but we'll try to let a little bit of rock poke out here and there. Once the glue is applied, sprinkle on the 50/50 green flock blend and tap off the excess, and seal with thin sealer. Once this is dry, the last step is to add some coarse flock to give it a little more texture. First, apply some white glue in a few random spots, then use a brush to spread it out. Then sprinkle on some 50/50 green coarse flock blend, tamp it down, tap off the excess, and seal with thick sealer. Once it's dry, the tree will be finished. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And check out Terrainify.com where you can get these and all of our other models. Thanks for watching.